General Hospital spoilers for Friday, May 30th, reveal that Michael has always been seen as the epitome of a devoted father, a calm businessman, and a worthy heir to both the powerful Corinthos and Quartermain families. But now, those halos are severely shaken by the cold decisions he's making. One of which is causing a tremor throughout Port Charles. Michael has demanded that Sasha completely deny their relationship, including the fact that he is the father of the child she's carrying. There are no words strong enough to describe the cruelty hidden behind his usual calm demeanor. As the woman who once stood by him through his darkest times is now forced to erase all traces of their bond, their affection, and most importantly, the life growing inside her. Sasha was numb upon hearing Michael's words, not out of surprise, but because she could not fathom that he could make such a brutal request with such a cold and almost rational tone. Michael didn't shout, didn't get angry, didn't blame anyone. He simply stated that if this became public, it would seriously affect the current situation, specifically the battle for guardianship of Wiley and Amelia, the restructuring of ELQ after Monica's death, and the image the family is trying to protect in the public eye. He didn't want a scandal. Didn't want trouble, and certainly didn't want a child who wasn't planned to become a reason for Tracy to exploit him within ELQ or for Drew to use it in his personal agenda. He promised to take care of everything for Sasha, medical expenses, a safe place to stay, a guarantee for the baby's future, so long as she remained silent. Furthermore, Michael suggested she accept that the child has no father, legally, avoid any birth records mentioning him, and stay away from the Corinthos and Quartermain households after the birth. This was no longer a request but an unspoken, threatening contract. If Sasha refused, she would face isolation, media attacks, and the consequences Michael could easily impose on her. What makes this situation even crazier is not just Michael's coldness, but the timing. The family is already falling apart after Monica's death. Jason is seen as a traitor for tearing up the will. Drew is losing control as he feels shut out from major decisions. Tracy is lurking for any opening to manipulate things in her favor. In this context, Michael having an unplanned child is like dropping a bomb in the middle of the power struggle. He believes that erasing the issue at its root, by completely denying his connection with Sasha, is the only way to maintain stability, even at the cost of his heart and humanity. Sasha, who once thought that at least Michael was a final pillar of support, is now shattered. She's not only seen as a risk to control, but as a shadow that can be wiped away anytime if it disrupts the trajectory Michael is desperately trying to protect. She feels the child growing inside her has become part of a war it never chose to be in, a silent victim of schemes born from ambition, fear, and the vanity of adults. In Michael's heart, he might still think he's doing the right thing, that he's preventing a bigger tragedy, that he's protecting Wiley and Amelia from further turmoil. But that very calculation reflects a terrifying change within him. Michael no longer acts out of love, but out of strategy. He no longer sees people as family but as pixels in a power map he is redrawing day by day. If those closest to Michael were to discover the truth, would they still recognize the person once hailed as the light of the Corinthos family? Would Jason still support him? Would Carly agree with such a cold, inhumane arrangement? And Drew, already impulsive, could he exploit this story to completely destroy Michael's public image? The situation between Michael and Sasha is no longer just a personal secret. It's the final piece that could trigger a tsunami that might sweep away everything Monica left behind. And when the truth comes out, it won't just shock, it will strike directly at the heart of this family. Because at that moment, everyone will realize they haven't just lost Monica, they've also lost the son she hoped would preserve their love, honor, and legacy. In the painful silence of Sasha, in Michael's cold calculation, and in the indifference of those around them, an innocent child is becoming the victim of a family that is slowly destroying itself, piece by piece. And when the shock finally explodes, it won't stop with those who caused it, it will spread, like fire on paper walls, burning everything that seemed unbreakable. When Liz and Laura meet, immediately senses something is wrong in Lucky's eyes and behavior. He is no longer the young man with a warm heart and deep sense of justice that she once loved and trusted. He has returned from somewhere far away, not just in terms of distance, but in the gap between his mind and the darkness inside his soul. There are nights when Laura wakes up, feeling as though she is seeing a completely different person wearing the face of her son. Liz, who once loved Lucky with all her youth and pain, also feels this change. She once hoped that one day, Lucky would come back, and they could find something lost. But what she sees now is a man torn apart, filled with obsession, and carrying with him unpredictable secrets. He often disappears in the middle of the night, takes mysterious calls, and his gaze makes it impossible for Liz to tell whether it's pain or anger being suppressed to the extreme. She has touched Lucky's wounds before, but now she doesn't know if she can get close to him again. The conversation between Liz and Laura is, therefore, not just a sharing, but a painful warning. Both women understand that something is about to happen. Lucky's erratic behavior, his unspoken distance from Cameron and Aiden, and his clear obsession with the past, all of this is creating a picture no one dares to speak of. Laura fears that Lucky is hiding something terrible. Something that could throw their family back into the vortex of chaos once again. Meanwhile, Liz, with a heart always full of worry, begins to realize that she's losing access to an important part of her life that she once thought she knew very well. The obsessions Lucky is bringing back are not just the result of his travels. They are signs of a mind deeply wounded, perhaps even manipulated. There are rumors that Lucky is investigating something related to underground activities in town, possibly targeting people who were once his closest friends. But instead of sharing this with his mother or Liz, he isolates himself, torn by inner conflict and self-imposed loneliness. He no longer trusts anyone, even beginning to doubt those who love him most. And this loss of trust is driving him away from the only arms that could save him. Laura has witnessed many crises in her life. She's faced Helena Cassadine, watched Nicholas die and come back to life, and carried the burden of being mayor during times of chaos. But she has never felt as helpless as when she sees her son turn into someone she doesn't recognize. The fear in Liz's eyes is not from the future, but from the present, so uncertain. And as the two women share an honest moment, they realize that Lucky is no longer just their family's problem. He could be the final unstable piece that plunges all of Port Charles into a new period of chaos. And when that storm finally erupts, when the secrets Lucky is hiding come to light, when his strange actions trigger a chain reaction beyond control, everyone will have to face a brutal reality. That the one who was once their hope, the heart of the family, might also be the one to bring the biggest downfall. And in that moment, as Liz and Laura stand by each other, both feel something they dare not speak aloud, that one of the craziest events is drawing near, and this time, it cannot be saved by love or forgiveness, but only by the truth. But that truth, who will have the courage to face it? Curtis is falling into a state of inner turmoil so intense that it cannot be hidden. And the source of all these disturbances comes from someone he once trusted completely, Porsha. Recently, Curtis is no longer the strong, composed man he once was. He has become introspective, avoiding direct conversations, and there's a clear sense of hesitation whenever Porsha enters the room. All of this stems from Porsha's actions and words, things that seemed like personal worries, but now are pulling Curtis into a spiral with no escape, where trust is being tested, and his feelings are pushed aside by an ever-growing doubt. Porsha continuously interferes in Curtis's personal decisions, especially those involving Trina and their family. As a concerned wife, Porsha tries to control every situation. But this very control makes Curtis feel suffocated and stripped of his autonomy. He no longer feels like a partner in a relationship based on mutual understanding. Instead, he feels like someone being scrutinized, with every word and action weighed down by judgment, not love. This sensation is pushing him away from Porsha, even as he tries to maintain the facade of a husband trying to mend things. But these efforts, at this point, are in vain. Curtis begins to realize that every move he makes is being analyzed. Every decision doubted, and worst of all, even his fragile peace is no longer respected. Porsha, once a reliable wife, is now the source of the pressure weighing on Curtis's mind. He has been through many crises, being shot, confronting a dark past, and losing his ability to walk, but nothing has made him feel as unstable as now. When the person he loves most is the one destabilizing his efforts to rediscover himself. In these lonely moments, Curtis starts to be haunted by the thought that their marriage is rotting from within. Every time Porsha tries to help, Curtis feels like he's being turned into a project rather than being treated as a human with emotions and boundaries. He no longer sees himself at the center of a relationship built on understanding but rather as the one responsible for maintaining a facade that no longer reflects the truth. And from this suffocating feeling, new obsessions begin to emerge. The fear that he will never truly be himself in this shared life. The fear that Porsha will never see him as an independent man, only as someone who needs to be adjusted. Things get worse when Curtis's recent changes, from how he interacts with friends to quietly withdrawing from family activities, are interpreted by Porsha as signs of emotional detachment. Instead of communication, Porsha opts for even tighter control, creating a vicious cycle that only makes Curtis more exhausted. The lack of personal space and being interrupted in his thoughts makes Curtis feel as though he's imprisoned in a life he voluntarily stepped into. Porsha, however, believes she's doing the right thing, trying to keep the family together, protecting Curtis from impulsive mistakes. But the way she expresses her love makes Curtis feel more like a child being monitored than a partner being supported. And this is leading to one of the biggest shifts in Curtis, losing his way within his own marriage. This is no longer just a conflict between spouses. It's becoming a growing nightmare in Curtis's mind, that love, freedom, and personal choice are being suffocated by expectations that can never be met. And as these obsessions become clearer, Curtis starts to realize that the only thing he might need is not more advice or control, but a pause to understand who he truly is, and whether the love he has for Porsha is still something natural, or just an obligation he's gradually losing. Curtis's hesitation is not just a reflex, it's a sign that a chain reaction has begun. And if neither of them stops to deeply examine their reality, the coming explosion will not only destroy a marriage but also collapse whatever is left of a man trying to keep himself from falling apart again. Ava sits in the dimly lit room, her sharp yet deep gaze observing Nina with caution as the woman trembles, revealing her plans for the upcoming trial. Though they had once been rivals, there now exists a fragile connection between Ava and Nina, based on past wounds, power struggles, and irreparable losses. Ava knows all too well the dangers of getting too personally involved in legal battles. She had lost Kiki due to the uncontrollable consequences of ambition and emotions. So when Nina says she will do whatever it takes to get close to Willow again, Ava cannot help but feel a new obsession forming, along with a disaster about to unfold that no one will be able to stop. Nina is gambling not just on legal matters but also delving into the treacherous world of a fractured family dynamic. Deep down, Nina doesn't just want to be a mother, she wants to be acknowledged. She craves public forgiveness, a restored image in the eyes of Port Charles, and, most importantly, her place in Willow's life, one that she believes she should never have lost. But Ava sees it clearly. What Nina is doing is no longer for Willow but for her own wounded heart, a wound driving her actions, no matter how reasonable they might appear. With a deep insecurity and obsession that she will be permanently excluded. The upcoming trial is no longer just a legal dispute. Nina, with her carefully chosen team of lawyers, has begun gathering documents, witnesses, and even private details that could undermine Willow's credibility, something Ava recognizes as extremely dangerous. Willow, after facing the pretend death of her adoptive mother Harmony, a life-threatening illness, and a crumbling marriage with Michael, is living in a fragile mental state. Being dragged into a trial where her own biological mother stands on the opposite side could push her to the brink of collapse. Ava, once an enemy to Willow, is now the first to see the disintegration taking shape minute by minute. Meanwhile, Nina is blinded by the belief that securing legal rights in Willow's life will be her final act of redemption. That she can fix everything. She doesn't see that her actions are only pushing her and Willow further apart, making forgiveness, what she desires most, impossible. Ava, whose voice once struck fear into many, now must soften it to urge Nina to abandon her harsh tactics. But Nina won't back down. She's gone too far, invested too much, and most painfully. She's placed all her honor on this fateful gamble. Ava knows that the worst part won't come from what happens in the witness stand or the courtroom's verdict. The worst part will be the look Willow gives Nina when she discovers that her mother went to such extremes, manipulating the legal system to get what love and trust should never be forced into. When family becomes a weapon, every victory, no matter how it may seem, leaves a deep wound. And now, Ava, once the enemy, is the reflection of the truth Nina faces. There's nothing Ava can do but watch as the woman in front of her sinks deeper into her obsession with a second chance. Ava understands all too well that not everything that can be won through the law should be won. Some things, if they must be fought for, will only turn into an empty shell of what they once were. The story between Nina and Willow is no longer just a mother-daughter tale, it's a testament to the madness spreading throughout the Corinthos family in Port Charles. The decisions that seem reasonable, the advice from lawyers, the meticulously prepared evidence, they're all paving the way for a disaster no one dares name. And Ava, who has lived through the hell of loss, now finds herself powerless as she watches a mother destroy her chance at love simply because she cannot accept that true love doesn't come from what we fight for, but from what we let go. Alexis is entering one of the most stressful and turbulent periods of her life, not because of her legal work, not because of her political reputation, but because the bonds of her blood are slowly becoming untied. When she unexpectedly meets Lucky and Christina at an awkward family gathering, Alexis has no idea that the meeting will be the turning point that will cause everything to spin out of control. The three of them stand before each other, not in a loving relationship, but in an atmosphere of doubt, disappointment, and a vague fear that builds every day from things no one dares to say out loud. What worries Alexis is not just the presence of Christina, her fierce daughter, often hurt by her mother's decisions, but the fact that Rick Lansing, her ex-husband, enemy, and ally, has returned with a new secret in his hands. A secret that could upend the entire strategy Alexis has been quietly crafting to secure the legal rights of Christina, who she knows will soon find herself at the center of a series of disputes over property, politics, and family reputation. Rick, with his unquenchable ambition, holds information that, if revealed, could cause everything Alexis has built for Christina to crumble like a sand castle in the face of a tidal wave. Lucky, though not directly involved in the legal machinations, is a dangerous intermediary. He knows both Alexis and Rick's histories, and he can sense the rising level of uncertainty in Alexis's every word. What had seemed like an innocent conversation between the three of them quickly turned into an undeclared battle of wits, as Alexis began to assess Christina's every move. Wondering if Rick had gotten close to her daughter, what seeds of doubt he had planted in her mind, and whether she had enough time to take control of the situation before something serious happened. Alexis knew full well that Rick would never act without the real levers of power. And what haunted her was what secrets Rick held, the trust documents Monica had promised Christina, or the legal changes Alexis had made behind the scenes to ensure her daughter would be left standing if she were gone. Whatever it was, Alexis sensed it, a serious change was coming. Not a change in the relationship, but a seismic event that would shatter the foundations she had tried to protect. And what terrified her most was that Christina, with all her anger and hurt that had never been soothed, might not be on her side when the truth came out. Alexis knew that if she didn't act now, she could lose everything, not her reputation or her career, but Christina's fragile trust. But while Alexis was planning her counterattack, Rick's sudden closeness with Christina was creating another danger. If Rick tried to win Christina over with affection, if he convinced her that Alexis was just manipulating her, then every truth, no matter how true, would become a lie in Christina's eyes. And that was the new obsession weighing on Alexis, the fear of losing her daughter, not because she did something wrong, but because she didn't have time to explain what she did right. Alexis's inner turmoil was growing. She knows that to protect Christina, she will have to face Rick again, not with hatred, but with reason, with the law, with the truths she once buried because she thought her daughter was not strong enough to face. But now, with the changes taking place not according to her script, Alexis is forced to make a choice, risk her entire plan to keep Christina by her side, or continue down a treacherous path and hope that her daughter will understand, before it is too late. The story between Alexis, Rick, Christina and Lucky is more than just the complex intertwining of four people. It is a moving picture, where every small detail can cause a chain reaction that pushes them all over the edge. And when the truth is finally revealed, none of them will be the same person again. Alexis is faced with a new obsession, the obsession that everything she sacrificed to protect Christina may be the reason she loses her daughter forever.